All right, so I finally got my hands on some maple veneer, which is really sweet. I've actually had this for about 3 months, but I've been hesitant to do anything with it, mostly because I just haven't used maple before, and I wasn't sure exactly how I wanted to go about doing it, if I wanted to do Formica on it, or if I wanted to have just maple. I've decided to just do plain maple with 7 plies and see how that goes. I got the veneer from actually Drang Boards, which is a local company here, which is really sweet because I was able to avoid having to pay shipping. So normally, if I wasn't able to get from Drang, I'd have to get from Rocket, which is up. They're from Canada, and they have a distribution office, I think, in New York. So if I was to buy from Rocket, they'd have to ship from New York, which is great if you're on the East Coast, which a lot of builders are. But if you're not, if you're on the other side of the Continental Divide, it can be a little expensive to get the wood to you. So I was able to get some wood from Drang, which is really sweet. And I'm actually hoping to get some birch veneer from them at some point as well. And maybe, if they let me, at some point I could also do a tour of their shop and see some of their stuff they've got there, which would be pretty cool as well. So anyway, this is going to be my first time pressing maple. And so, again, I've been a little hesitant because of that. It's a lot trickier to press maple because the veneers are so thin that they'll bubble a lot more. They don't press back on the press. So with birch, the Baltic birch, it's already plywood. It's already really stiff, and so it's able to push back into the press. And so that keeps. So if I go like this, you know, and bend it like this, they all press against each other based on their own springiness. But with maple, if I do that, look, I'll see if I've got gaps, even if I'm bending it this much, because it doesn't press back nearly as strongly. So it's a lot harder to press maple, or actually just veneer in general, than it is the pre-made plywood stuff. So I've been kind of making sure my press has been up to scratch. It's been turning out really, really good, flawless boards lately. So I think it's ready. So let's get the camera in, and we'll just have a close look, and I'll just do a time lapse when I do the layup. So here we go. So what I've got here is I've got all the plies, and I think they should already be in order. We've got a lengthwise, a second lengthwise, a third lengthwise. Uh-oh, doesn't look like they're in order at all. Fourth lengthwise, one cross grain, a lengthwise grain, and a cross grain. Yeah, that's not the right order. So what we need to do is the cross grains are going to be near the middle. So let's just grab those right here. So I've got cross grain sandwich, and I'm just going to stick that right in the middle there. So there we go. So now I've got 2 straight grains, a cross grain, a straight grain, a cross grain, and 2 straight grains. Perfect. So the other thing I need to do is, well, maybe I won't, because maybe I can just be not very picky today. But what you're supposed to do is, so the grains of the wood. Let me grab a straight edge here. So the grains of the wood, ideally, are all running perfectly parallel with the length of the side of the wood you're cutting, right? But that's not always going to be the case. The veneers can come off, you know, a little skewed, and if you've got everything skewed in one way, when you press up the board, you could end up getting a little warp because of that. And it's especially true probably with the cross grains. Unfortunately, it's not very easy to check how straight the grains are. But it's a little easier to check with the cross grains because you just fold them, and if they're not perpendicular, when you fold it, you'll get a big skew like that, or a small skew. These ones are actually looks pretty good. But yeah, so if you're going to be really, you know, if you're just not doing a test run, you might want to make sure, it's a little skewed, but it's probably fine. You want to make sure that you alternate any offset plies so that they counteract each other and you end up with really good straight decks. And that is straight from Jared's mouth at Drang when he told these to me. That's exactly what he told me to do, and that's not something I'd heard before, which is very surprising because I've heard a lot of, I've been making boards for a long time, and I thought I heard it all. So that's the tip of the day. So next thing I gotta do is I've got to start gluing up. So I've got my rollers. I haven't made a deck for about 3 months, but these have just been in the refrigerator, and you can see they're perfectly gluey and ready. And then here's my roller. So I'm gonna actually put plies over here, and then do the rolling over here. So let me get the roller on the roller, like that, and that's ready to go. So another difference between the veneers and the plywood is that on the plywood, there's really no downside to using too much glue except wasting glue. Whereas on the veneers, they can become oversaturated with water, causing them to swell and expand. And anyway, having too much water can make them it so you have bubbles when it's drying. So you do not want to have too much extra glue with the veneers. So with that being said, I'm just going to start doing the glue up. Try to use only the right amount of glue, and we'll see how it goes. So commence thing. So one thing I forgot is that there are face veneers that are sanded and pre-finished a little bit, and then there's veneers that are rough. And you can see this has got a big old flaw in the middle of it, and so that's actually not the one I want on the outside. So I'm actually going to make sure I've got the face veneers on the faces. So this other side I do, it's just this one that was flipped. So I just have to remember to do that. That's not something you have to worry about with Baltic birch, because they've already done that for you, and all the faces are face veneers. So back to the glue up. Okay. And I think that's probably pretty good. Take the roller, stick it in the bag, and take the handle off. There we go. Okay, switch side. Just check on. So I flushed up this side the most, so that's going to be the side I put into this side of the press because that's where we've got the index. And let me just make sure there's no dirt and gunk in there. Okay. So a 7-ply maple deck is a little thinner than the Baltic birch deck. So in order to make up the space, and also to provide some spring back so it should press up a little better, I'm actually going to throw in 1 Baltic birch ply with it, and that's going to go on the bottom, and it's not going to glue up to the board. It's just there to provide some extra thickness. And so I'm going to go ahead and put this in the press. Alright, so there's the wood in the press. It's looking pretty good. There's no glue coming out anywhere, which could mean I didn't use enough, but it definitely means I didn't use too much. So that's good. I'm sure any little bits of DLAM I can fix, and I can adjust my glue usage accordingly in future runs. So yeah, I think we'll just have to wait and see. I'll have to leave it in here a little longer since it's starting to get so cool out. But I won't have to leave it in too ridiculously long because unlike the boards I press up, which have the Formica on them, the maples just is uncovered, so it'll be able to get rid of the water a lot quicker. So there we go. That's pressing up my first maple deck. So there we go. Longboard technology over and out.